The Love Boat goes on a cruise. Missile Cruise will not be shown at this time. In its place, we present the following bomb.
BBC Sounds. It's Breaking the News with Des Clark.
I am Des Clark, and this is Breaking the News, the show that breaks the week's news and asks four opinionated panellists to put it back together again. Joining me this week are some of the best comedians from across the UK. On my right, we have Mark Jennings and Esther Manito, and up against them are Elaine Malcolmson and Dawn Biswas. In the news this week, India has unveiled the 4 Air Force pilots who have been shortlisted to travel on the country's maiden space flight scheduled for next year. It'll be the highest 4 people have been in India since the Beatles went there in 1968. The boss of the nationalised Ferguson shipyard has said lessons have been learned as further costs and delays to 2 new CalMac ferries were confirmed. Service users are now hoping that one of the lessons learned is how to finish building a ferry really quickly. And Donald Trump has appeared to forget his own wife's name during a speech in Washington, in which he referred to former First Lady Melania as Mercedes. The former president laughed it off as a gaffe, although he did later spend an hour trying to find her in the multi-storey car park. Right, you've met the panel. Let's crack on with round 1. This is the Broken News round, where our teams have to guess 2 major stories of the week that have been mashed together into one single news headline. So, Mark and Esther, can you tell me what this is all about?
Hamza Yousaf's
Willy Wonka-inspired theme park
went down well in the room, but almost immediately it led
to complaints from furious
councils. The Deputy First Minister, Shona Robertson, is warning that local authority bosses
who were promised a celebration of chocolate
will miss out on
a golden ticket.
There are 2 stories in there, Mark. Any idea what our first one might be?
I believe this is the controversy surrounding the Scottish council tax freeze.
Brilliant, that's the right answer, well done. This is the ongoing rankle between the Scottish Government and local councils about the council tax freeze. First Minister Hamza Yousaf made the surprise promise of a year-long council tax freeze last October. However, a failure to consult with council leaders led to a dispute over funding with local government body COSLA. Argyll and Bute Council was the first to defy SNP ministers when it voted for a 10% rise last week. Hamza Yousaf has said that he hoped there could still be a council tax freeze across Scotland and that money could be raised elsewhere. He then added, if MD's interested in buying a camper van, I know where to get one. What do you think then, Mark? Is Hamza Yousaf's council tax freeze falling apart?
Basically, the Conservative financial spokeswoman had accused the SNP of favouring what she referred to as the so-called social contract, because famously the Tories believe there's no such thing as society and believe that contracts are things that you give out to your mates during a pandemic.
What is interesting is that they said, right, so you said it just there, there needs to be a 10% rise to plug up the gap. And I was like, they always use 10%, don't they? That's what politicians do. They just throw 10% at us and that's just going to distract us. It's always like 10% freeze, 10% rise, 10% mini budget, 10% rise in cost of living. And I'm like, Hamza, just throw, mess it up a little bit, cause a bit of, attention by just turning around and going, actually, at 8%. It'll be an 8% rise. And then everyone would just go, oh my God, that makes sense. That's like, it sounds like something that should happen, because we're so used to 10%.
But if you just lower it a little
Just
bit...
keep saying 10%,
Give
Esther.
a different number, yeah, exactly. Love that. Elaine, what have you made about this then? Do you think Hamza Yousaf's council tax freeze is falling apart?
I'm quite suspicious, right? Because this was the government's budget. And you have to be suspicious of politicians laying out like their own agendas. And the budget gets set by the Finance Secretary, Shona Robertson, and she's the MSP for Dundee City East. And you look at that budget, you have to be wary, because if you look closely, Broughty Ferry's getting a monorail and an aqua park.
The devil's in the detail, isn't it? Well, there you go, a great insight there. And of course, we're talking about council budgets. There's been a lot of protest about potholes across the country, and including right here where we're recording in the city of Glasgow. Mark, how do we solve the pothole problem?
We could try filling them with tarmac that doesn't have the consistency of black pudding.
Esther, what do you think? How can we solve this pothole problem?
Just fill them with voters' tears when we realise we've got to choose between Starmer and Sunak.
They'll be overflowing. Don, what about yourself? We're talking about our local council areas. For you, what's the best thing about your local council area?
Well, I'm from Wimbledon, and the local council isn't Labour or Tory. It's run by the Wombles. Our council leader is Uncle Bulgaria. So. And if you want to get to Wimbledon, it's quite easy. You go overground, underground.
The announcement of a council tax freeze caused tensions when the Scottish Government failed to consult with council leaders and COSLA. COSLA is, of course, the umbrella body which represents Scotland's local authorities, and they also do a lovely big chocolate fudge cake. Sorry, that's Costco. My fault. Well done, Mark and Esther. You get 2 points for that. It was the latest on the council tax freeze in Scotland. Over to you now, Elaine and Dawn. What was the other story we were after?
A disappointing Willy Wonka experience.
Certainly one way to phrase it. And it's the right answer, yes. Police were called to an event described as a Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow as angry families demanded refunds. This story's been everywhere. The £35 a ticket experience was advertised as a journey filled with wondrous creations. But when families turned up to the address in an industrial area of Glasgow, they discovered a sparsely decorated warehouse with a scattering of plastic props, a small bouncy castle, and some backdrops pinned against a wall. In a statement, the organisers apologised for the very stressful and frustrating day and confirmed that full refunds would be given to customers. To be fair, I will be honest, I don't know why the parents were so upset. It can't be the first time Glaswegians have had a disappointing time hunting for Charlie in a warehouse. Oh, Elaine, well done for getting the right answer. This story has gone truly global. What do you make of what has happened this week, Elaine?
It's like a gangster has set up a warehouse to interrogate a tout. And then at the last minute, remembered he needs childcare. Right? It's brilliant. The police were called.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
About time. Willy Wonka's been associated with the disappearance and suspected maiming of children going back to 1974. It's a great story.
My viewpoint on it is that as an Indian, they paid £35 for a chocolate factory experience. For half the price, they could have taken a tour of my dad's newsagent.
It reminded me, I went to, years ago, me and my husband went to the Saw experience in Thorpe Park. I know, I don't know if you know that film, you know. Do you want a black game? That one. And it cost 50 quid in Thorpe Park, and we went in, and it was like the Wonka experience. And it was just like all these students just rolling around the floor, just like, ugh. And my husband just leant in and whispered to me, oh, how do we get out of here? And this lad just came out of character and just went, you just go down there, it's on the left. I'm like, this is so shocking.
Amazing story. Everyone talking about it this week. Yes, it has truly made headlines across the world. But can we try and defend the organisers? Was it always going to be difficult trying to recreate Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in a warehouse in Glasgow? Elaine, what are you thinking?
Well, if they'd taken the bus to White Inch, they would have got a journey filled with wondrous creations and enchanting surprises.
It's a good night out. It's not that easy creating your own theme park, or is it? If our panel were going to create their own theme park, what would be the theme and why?
My theme would be a theme park for mums, where it's just silent and dark and filled with beds, and you'll just get hooked up to drips filled with Prosecco, and the main attraction is you get to go for a slash in peace.
I would create a Glasgow-themed theme park. So you could have the carousel would be the subway because it only goes round in a circle. And you'd have the dodgems, but you'd need to stay outside the centre because that's the low emission zone. And instead of scaring people with a haunted house, you just have Easter House.
Sign me up. Sign me up. I mean, the least they could have done was source a decent number of Oompa Loompas, given that if you're looking for wee orange men who can carry a tune... All I'm saying is Lark Hall isn't that far away. And there we go. Well done, Elaine and Dawn. You get 2 points for that. It was the mashup of the Scottish council tax freeze and the immersive Willy Wonka experience gone wrong. And at the end of that round, well done. The teams are all square. Now, so much of our news is about public opinion, so to find out what stories people are talking about, we spoke to two friends of the show, broadcaster Shireen Nanjiani and fellow broadcaster, writer and musician Vic Galloway. So, Elaine and Dawn, what do you think Shireen is on about here?
I'm guilty of picking one of these up when I've promised myself I'm going to be good. It's about time we changed our habits. This might be a start, but the main thing is to make it easier for people and cheaper for people to make healthier choices. Let's give the healthy stuff a fair go instead of gorging on all the sweet stuff.
Was she talking about meal deals?
Spot on, yes. Crisps and fizzy drinks could be banned from meal deals and plans being considered by the Scottish Government to crack down on junk food. Critics have dubbed it Meal Deal Gate, which is also what we called the place where the burger van parked outside our school. Just handing it in through the railings. Dawn, well done in getting the right answer. What do you make of these proposals then?
Don't attack the meal deals. If you want to stop people eating sweets or chocolate, send them to a Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow.
Clever, thank you, Dawn. I love that. Mark, I'll turn to you now. What do you make of these proposals?
I was in a petrol station recently and I bought a sandwich and a juice. And then when I went to the counter, the guy said to me, "Oh, if you get a chocolate bar, you can save money as well." And I was like, "Mate, if I wanted to buy a chocolate bar, I wouldn't have went to all the effort to sneak one into my pocket."
It's an honest man. That's what I love about you, Mark. Esther, what do you make of these proposals then?
Oh, I always just think it's really patronising. I hate the patronising. It's like, oh my God, these are the things that we can do to ensure that people eat healthier. It's like, no, just lower the cost of healthy food and stop patronising people and stop making healthy stuff so gross. Like, you know, when you get the healthy alternatives to things, like cake, it's like, no, instead of getting a bit of cake, get this healthy version, this sugar-free whole wheat brownie that's been sweetened with beetroot. It's like healthy food. Cake should not look or taste like it's been scraped out of a hutch.
That is the best description of any food that I've ever heard, Esther. Bonus points all round here. What do you think about this then, Elaine? Do you think meal deals are the right thing to target if we want to tackle obesity?
I don't know. It's just another daft idea, isn't it? Like, because one of the ideas is that they're going to restrict selling locations, so like junk food and meal deals will no longer be at the front of the shop, which means people will just be hungrier when they get to them. Just restrict selling locations to like the top of a Munro or inside the low emission zone. Or...
Well, obviously, we're talking about the meal deals. A lot of people up in arms saying they couldn't live without certain elements of their meal deal. But what food could you not live without and why? Dawn?
I couldn't live without cheesecake. I absolutely love cheesecake, chocolate cheesecake, vanilla cheesecake. It'll be the last meal I have on death row. And as a Hindu, it'll be the first meal I have when I get reincarnated. I'm not even a Hindu now, Joe. I am.
He just wants double cheesecake. Okay. Well, there we go. Proposed restrictions on junk food is indeed the right answer. Well done, Elaine and Dawn. Over to you now, Mark and Esther. It's your turn. What do you think Vic is talking about here?
I followed my heart and not my head. I could have been somebody, a doctor or a lawyer, but instead I wasted my life listening to music and spending all my cash on records. If only I'd hooked up with a rich widow a few years ago. I could have been her toy boy and had an easy life.
Is this about financial regrets?
This is a new study that suggests more than half of us have financial regrets. These include not putting money into a savings account each month, spending money on pointless things, and not choosing a better paid job or career. What do you think? Do you have any specific financial regrets?
Yes, kids.
But they bring you so much joy, do they not?
They don't.
No, okay. So honest. Mark, what about you? Amazing answer from this week's news. Do you have any specific financial regrets?
We're in the East End at the moment, and I do now. The longer we're sitting here, I really regret declining the offer from the wee guy to watch my motor, because I think it's probably not going to be there when I get out.
No. What do you think about this then, Elaine? Do you have any specific financial regrets?
This thing where people say they wish they had married someone with more money, I think Jeff Bezos regrets not marrying me. Because I would have been the only one that would have said to him, listen, Jeff, love, you just focus on getting your wee parcels right before you think about going into space.
Some sound advice for the billionaire owner of Amazon there. He needs somebody in his life to tell him that.
Don't you be listening to all those other boys. You just get your deliveries sorted and then you can play with your rocket.
Oh, Dawn, what about this then? So we've got a survey saying that many of us have financial regrets. Is that you? Do you have any specific financial regrets?
Probably my biggest financial regret is doing the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Yes.
It cost me like £10,000 and I'm still paying it off, so... So all I'm saying is that afterwards, see me if you want to buy a kidney, so... Or 2 kidneys, I don't care, so...
whatever it takes, you'll do it. Oh, Elaine, what about you? We're talking about financial regret. You often get that being a comedian. But, Elaine, if you weren't a comedian, what would you be doing and why?
Comedy's all about timing, isn't it? And I suppose life is more about timing than choices, really, isn't it? Like, so I think if I'd been born 20 years later, I think I would have been a professional footballer. And I think if I was born 20 years earlier, I would have been released under the Good Friday Agreement.
That's brilliant. Yes, many people regret a financial decision made on impulse, like booking a holiday, buying a house, or letting your kids watch the football on your work iPads. There we go, financial regrets is of course the right answer. 2 points go to Mark and Esther. You're listening to Breaking the News from BBC Radio Scotland with me, Des Clark. Now, this round is all about who's in the news. I will play you a clip of a mystery person. All you have to do is tell me who it is. So, Mark and Esther, you're up first this time. Who is this?
But there's no doubt the happiness of being here played a huge part, both professionally and personally. So that made it pretty straightforward in terms of wanting to come back. Our life outside of football was incredible.
Brendan Rodgers, the Celtic manager, who got in a bit of bother this week for something he said to a female journalist at the end of a press conference.
That is the right answer. That is indeed Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers. He was in the news this week after causing a stooshy when he, at the end of a post-match interview, said "good girl" to a female BBC journalist. Jane Lewis says she took no offence at the "good girl" comment, and when Mr Rodgers addressed the comments, he said some people were looking to be offended, and he has since had a laugh. The Scottish Feminist Network and For Women Scotland had urged Mr Rodgers to explain the "good girl" comment, which has been labelled as unconscious sexism. Brendan Rodgers has said that he didn't mean to offend or patronise anyone, adding, just so you know, patronising means talking down.
he shouldn't have said it. It was a bit patronising, the most favourable sort of interpretation of it. And one of the only people that really defended Brendan Rodgers was actually Eamon Holmes. And when I heard that Eamon Holmes was one of Brendan Rodgers' defenders, I was like, wow, Celtic's transfer window was even worse than I thought.
I'll start by, on behalf of all women, thanking Eamon Holmes for explaining to us when we should feel patronised. Thanks for all that, Eamon. Look, the only time you should be using the term good girl would be if you were backing away from a lioness having been locked out your car at Blair Drummond.
Well, how do we tackle what some have called unconscious sexism?
I don't know, with conscious violence. Someone calls you a good girl, you just headbutt them in the face. Simple. They won't do it again. Or you really go into it. Like, if someone calls you a good girl, then you're just like, oh my God, thank you so much, because I try really hard to be a really good girl, and I'm just always hormonal, and I'm always on my period, and I just can't do maths, and I just want a man and a baby, and I'm just so glad that you finally recognise it.
Dawn, what do you think then? How do we tackle what many call unconscious sexism?
Well, if you want to tackle sexism in general, there's one thing, and so some people out there are going to hate it, but I agree with it. We should ban Joey Barton from Twitter. Simple as. He's just spouting about female presenters and football pundits, and nothing wrong with that at all. So
there you go.
Yeah, so just get rid of Joey Barton. 90% of sexism will go, and the other 10% is Eamon Holmes. So
It's always 10%.
Brings it back to how we started. And there we go. Yes, 2 points go to Mark and Esther. That was, of course, Brendan Rodgers. Right, it's over to you now. Elaine and Dawn, who is this and why are they in the news?
Conservatives are now operating in what is a hostile environment. And we essentially need a bigger bazooka.
Is it Liz Truss?
It's the right answer. There we go. It is Liz Truss. Truss is back. The former Prime Minister has been criticised for recent media appearances in the US where she claimed her economic strategy was sabotaged by the deep state. The former Prime Minister was speaking at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, hosted by the American Conservative Union. What do you think Truss's plan is here then?
I don't think Liz Truss ever had a plan, did she? Liz Truss is the walking incarnation of a fridge magnet saying, Prosecco made me do it.
I feel a little bit sorry for her because I couldn't be Tory Prime Minister because I want something more stable than temp work.
Esther, what do you think Liz Truss's plan is here?
I don't think she's got a plan. I think Starmer's got a plan, and I think he's managed to get her to do all this stupid stuff so it makes Labour stronger, and he's just behind her going, good girl.
And there was another speaker that was a prominent Japanese conservative and a representative of this thing called the Happy Science Movement, whose followers regard him as their leader in the incarnation of a supreme being from Venus. And somehow that is still not as mental as her mini budget.
No, like she gets £115,000 a year just for having been Prime Minister for 6 weeks.
What?
So people that work in factories their whole lives and they don't even get to keep their hairnet.
What do you think then? We're talking about invitations and maybe regretting accepting one. Dawn, what about you? Have you ever regretted accepting an invitation?
Yesterday, I got offered a free holiday to Rwanda from the Home Office.
Well done for getting the right answer. We were, of course, listening to former Prime Minister Liz Truss. Liz Truss says the Conservatives need a bigger bazooka to fight against the left. Well, I've checked the definition of bazooka, and it's a tube that launches dangerous attacks. Liz, I think you've got it covered. Don't worry. And 2 points go to Elaine and Dawn. And it's time now for our final quick-fire round, which is all about deciphering the numbers in the news. I will read out a headline. All the teams have to do is fill in the blanks. So get ready, teams. When we run out of time, you'll hear this.
It's terrifying.
There you go. That's Paddy McGuinness with his personal review of the Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow. Right, fingers on buzzers. Here we go. 68% of Brits say what is unforgivable. Elaine.
Nat King Cole's greatest hit.
It's an easy mistake to make. It should be there in that list. It's not what we're looking for. Something else in this week's news. 68% of Brits say what is unforgivable. Anybody want to have a go? Dawn.
According to the GB News, it's the Islamists who are taking over this country.
Probably accurate for the answer, but not quite what we're looking for. Keep going, though. 68% of Brits say what is unforgivable. Esther.
Not saying sorry when you bump into somebody.
Oh,
is it close?
It's not. No, it's not. It's not close enough to give you a point for it. 68% of Brits say what is unforgivable. Mark.
Philip Schofield.
That's so close to the answer. Let's keep going. 68% of Brits say what is unforgivable. Mark.
Ollie Willoughby.
He's literally dancing around the answer here. 68% of Brits say what is unforgivable. We can give you the answer. 68% of Brits say queue jumping is unforgivable. So a point goes to Mark Jennings. Well done, Mark.
It's terrifying.
Oh, there we go. That's our klaxon. Paddy has McGuinness. That means it's all over. And at the end of the quiz, our winners this week are Dawn Biswas and Elaine Malcolmson. And commiserations to Esther Manito and Mark Jennings. And we'll leave you with the breaking news just in. Jackie Lowry, who was crowned the first Miss USA in 1952, has sadly died at the age of 93, it has been announced. Wearing nothing but a sash and a skimpy bikini, mourners said the priest really misread the room. Over 100 never-before-seen species have been discovered along a deep-sea mountain range near Chile. Amongst the wildlife spotted were glass sponges, sea urchins, amphipods and lobsters, as well as Rick Stein, a film crew in a frying pan. And the Royal Mint has unveiled a new collectible coin featuring the late pop star George Michael. It's not just being in money that King Charles and George Michael have in common. They've also both got an Andrew that nobody likes to talk about. The news is broken. I've been Des Clark. Goodbye!
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.